Do 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 da 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 do 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 be do do ba da ba da ba do 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 be do do. Hi everyone, welcome to another Siobhan Reviews Bond. Last time I reviewed Dr. No and was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. I just want to get this out of the way before I start. I think I gave Dr. No a rating, which I'm not going to do from this point onwards because after watching From Russia with Love, I decided that I liked it more than Dr. No and I rated Dr. No a bit higher. So I'm going to rate them all at the very end of this. So yeah, there'll be no rating, it's just kind of an overview of it at the moment. And yeah, I'll look forward to actually kind of ranking them because that'll be quite fun. So without further ado, let's get started on From Russia with Love. So this is the second film in the Bond franchise and it still has Sean Connery in it, and I was actually surprised at how much it kind of links to the first film. I did mention about Spectre in the Dr. No review and was kind of hoping that it might continue on, and it does, so that was fun. So From Russia with Love sees the return of Spectre and we actually get to see a lot more of them in this film. And this time they're very much a more active party than they were in Dr. No. They're after a decoding machine called the Lecter, which is currently stored in the Russian embassy in Istanbul. So in a weird series of events, a Russian lady, I think she's a spy, she kind of gets, I guess, chosen to seduce Bond and get his help to find the Lecter. She thinks she's working for Mother Russia, but she's in fact working for Spectre, which she doesn't know. Knowing full well that this is a trap, MI6 and Bond decide to, I guess, take the bait because they think that this Lecter might be very useful for them. So heading into this trap, Bond heads to Istanbul and adventure ensues. So the first thing I will say about this film is it feels a lot more polished than Dr. No. I guess it's because I feel more comfortable with Sean Connery as Bond and just more comfortable with the setup. And everything just feels a lot smoother than the first one. And I guess for me, I am more comfortable with the structure of how the Bond films are going to work. The opening of this film was strange, but I kind of liked it. It reminded me a little bit of Johnny English, which I think I'll see a lot of in these early Bond films at least, because obviously it's a spoof of James Bond with Rowan Atkinson as Johnny English. So I'm looking forward to seeing how many things that they've taken from it, because Johnny English was one of my, and still is actually, one of my all-time favourite films. It's great, it's so silly, I love it. So yeah, it's just this odd intro with Bond kind of running around this grounds of a house, and he just looks a bit strange, and lo and behold it's actually a guy in a mask, and it's quite like Mission Impossible. I actually probably think they got the kind of face mask thing idea from this, I don't know, but it really reminded me of that, but it was strange. So like with Dr. No, the kind of big mastermind behind everything is shrouded in mystery in this film. We only hear his voice in this and he's only referred to as number one, but I actually know what he looks like just from seeing clips and stuff over the years. But we get his voice kind of ruminating over his fighting fish, and it's this kind of very familiar monologue about how nature's ruthless and all this lot. And again, I can see that so many other films have kind of taken influence from this, which was quite interesting. But yeah, after the fighting fish, it's the cat, and I love that cat. It is an adorable cat, but I just could not help think every time the camera went onto the cat and he started talking that it was actually the cat talking. So that's just in my head now forever. The cat is actually number one. Now the villains in this were probably my favourite part. So we have the Russian spy turned Spectre operative Rosa Klebb, and she is incredible. And actually on researching this, Ian Fleming in the original book, he actually wrote Rosa with lesbian connotations, which I wasn't expecting, and they definitely play on this in the film. Because the bit that kind of got me was she's kind of recruiting Tatiana, who is the Russian lady who's sent to essentially seduce Bond, and she touches her knee. She's just being very leery and I guess predatory actually, and I was just very shocked. I wasn't expecting to see it in the film, and I kind of just passed it off as them
making her really villainous, but then when I read up about it, it kind of made sense. And I definitely wasn't expecting any sort of LGBT representation in this at all. And I will say, yes, it is, not the best. It is rather problematic. But as I said in the first video, this is from the 60s, it's a product of its time. We can't expect to have, perfect representation at all. But yeah, I just want to mention that, yeah, it was weird. It was rather problematic, but hey, I just wasn't expecting it. It really took me by surprise. So aside from that, Claire was actually a really good villain. I actually felt that she was a force to be reckoned with. You definitely kind of felt threatened by her. She was just really cool. I think my favourite moment of hers when she whips out her brass knuckles and just punches this guy straight in the stomach and is like, yeah, you'll do, you're cool. You can take my knuckle dusters to your tummy. She's very ruthless and calculating, and I genuinely think so far that she's one of my favourite Bond villains that I've seen. But as well as this, the other villain in this film is probably one of my favourites, and that's the guy who she actually punches in the stomach. So this guy's called Grant, and he's your typical silent but deadly assassin type guy. Throughout the most of this film, he is quite the stalker. You don't hear him talk. He is just it looks like he's kind of hunting Bond, but at the same time just keeping an eye on what's happening. But aside from this creepiness, I was very struck by a sense of familiarity with him, and I kind of shrugged it off as that he kind of looked like a mix between Daniel Craig and Rutger Hauer, and I just left it at that until he started talking, and something just clicked in my head. My facial recognition software just kicked in, and I realised that he is Quint from Jaws. So that was fun. And I was so taken aback by it. It was awesome. I wasn't expecting it. And yeah, he was great. But apart from being Quint, that's not the reason why he was my favourite. Robert Shaw, who plays him, does a great job of being a villain. He plays that kind of, like I said, the silent but deadly type very well. But also when he was speaking, it was, again, I just find him so enthralling. The same in Jaws. Every time Quint speaks, it's just he kind of has you on tenterhooks. I guess that's a pun that was not intended, but hey. But he has so much charisma that I actually think I liked his character more than Bond in this film. And again, he has that same effect in Jaws. Like, you know that you're not meant to like him, but how he plays the kind of... I guess he's not really a villain in Jaws, he's just a bit of an arse. But again, you're not meant to like him, but you kind of do anyway, and it was the same in From Russia with Love. I just thought he was a great character, and just every time he was talking, it was great. I loved it. So briefly, I'm going to just touch on the women in this film and how just awful some of the portrayals were. There was this very long belly dancing scene which could have been cut down to just very minimal. And you know what? Who doesn't love a bit of belly dancing? I do myself, but this was just too much. It was too much. And then there was the ladies who were fighting over a man, and they were doing it in a very cat-like way, you know, the typical cat fight thing. And again, I couldn't handle it. And again, I'm not saying it's right at all, because I didn't like it, but again, product of its time. I just keep needing to remind myself of that. You know what, this could be made into a drinking game actually. Every time I say product of its time, we just drink and get through it that way. So let's talk about the Bond woman, Tatiana, in this film. I was very up and down with her actually. There were times when I really liked her, there were times when she just really got on my nerves. But I think that was just part of her character anyway. So again, the whole meeting of them was just weird anyway. Like, Bond was showing a picture of her, and it was all like, oh, she likes the look of you and all this stuff, and it was just so strange. And you know that both of them knew that the other knew that they were trying to trick each other. I think that made sense. But yeah, like, there were times when she could be like really on it and quite, you know, strong, but then there were also times where she just went so, I guess, weak and a little bit pathetic. But I guess you could look at it in the way that it is like a manipulation technique to, you know, trick Bond. But then there were times when you actually think, wait a minute, she actually really has fallen in love with him, and by the end of it, you know, it appears that she has, which is bizarre. But as soon as kind of they, I guess, unveil everything and everything's out in the open and they know what each other's doing and they're kind of together on it. I guess I liked her a bit more. But there was this bit where like Bond slaps her in the face and I wasn't here for that either. I was like, really? Is that necessary? Product of its time. So one of my favourite scenes from this film actually comes from Moneypenny, who is very quickly becoming one of my favourite characters. I love her so much. She's just amazing. And there's this scene in MI6 where they're kind of gathered around a recording of Bond and Tatiana, where Bond is trying to get information about the Lecter and where it is, but Tatiana kind of keeps bringing the subject back to like romance and sex and all this lot, and oh, it's just so funny, and it gets a bit potentially raunchy, and essentially just sends Moneypenny out, and she's like, oh, you don't need to hear this is not for a woman's ears. So she goes out to her desk and just turns the intercom on and just carries on listening, and it is just so funny. I love her. She's just so cheeky, and she's great. It was just a really great scene. I loved it. But one of the main things I couldn't stop thinking about in this film was the amount of similarities with Indiana Jones, which I love. The Rats in the Sewers, like The Last Crusade. Again, like The Last Crusade, there's the kind of lady who actually turns out to be working for someone else. The part that really just made me smile so much was when a helicopter was chasing Bond, and he ends up essentially running across some field or whatever. It really reminded me of that moment in The Last Crusade, where the plane's chasing Indiana Jones and his dad, who is also coincidentally played by Sean Connery, and Sean Connery essentially uses the umbrella to kind of, I guess, scare a flock of seagulls into the plane and then crashes it. And I mean, that doesn't happen in this film, but just the vision of Sean Connery running away from a aircraft was really spectacular. I mean, he does like throw a grenade in it and it blows up, so it kind of has the same effect, but yeah, it really made me smile, and the fact that it was Sean Connery as well was just really cool. I don't know if this was, you know, a direct reference to it in Indiana Jones, but in any case, it made me happy. So I really liked the focus on espionage in From Russia with Love rather than the all-out action. I think it was very well done. There was so much tension that was built up in it with Tatiana and Bond, and then Bond and Grant. It was just very well done. There was one part that I loved when Bond was off the train that they were on, and he was kind of walking along the platform, but Grant was on the train, and you just caught glimpses of him when he was walking past the window, and that was really cool, really well done. But then literally like 5 minutes later, Grant kind of gets on the train again, pretending to be an MI6 agent, I think, and he has this very kind of posh English accent, you know, like the oh jolly old chap kind of thing, and he's just very overly friendly, and the tension that's kind of with Bond and Grant there is just so high, because you know that Bond knows that, you know, I think he's a bit shady. But when the action did happen, it was still very good. Like the blowing up of the helicopter, that was super fun. There were explosions on the water, that was really cool. But probably my favourite was the fight with Rosa Klebb at the end, when she has a poison knife in her shoe and she's just kind of flinging her foot around. It was very good. It was a very good ending for Rosa, but also a really good redemptive moment for Tatiana as well. But one thing that really got me about From Russia with Love was the ending. I was expecting to sit there for another hour and have this whole thing play out, but no, it just ended. And I was just like, excuse me? But then it said the end for now, so that was super fun. I had no idea that From Russia with Love went straight into the plot of Goldfinger. So I'm really excited to see that, because I'm already very excited for Goldfinger because I love the theme tune, because who doesn't love a bit of Shirley Bassey? So yeah, overall, From Russia with Love is definitely up there at the moment, something that I wasn't expecting. I really, really liked it. Like I said, I loved the tension, I liked the action sequences, the villains were just so great, and I really liked it, and I cannot wait to see how Goldfinger starts and ends and everything in between. So yeah, stay tuned for Goldfinger, which I will be getting onto very quickly because I'm really excited to see what happens. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the new videos in the Bond series. I'm also working on my Halloween series, which will be starting on the 1st of October. And I'm going to be talking about some of my favourite horror films, but I'm also going to be talking about ones that I haven't seen before, so that should be really exciting, so stay tuned for that. If you don't already, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I will leave the links down below. And if you want to support me on Patreon, I will also leave the link down there. It will help me out a great deal with making these videos and kind of just creating lots of new content for you guys. So yeah, I really hope you like that video, and I shall see you when I review a Goldfinger.
Ba 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 da dee doo dee da be da da doo da ba da da doo dee dee ba da da doo ba da boom.